Well, hello everybody and welcome to Chef's Baking Blog. Today I'm going to be making a cinnamon swirl loaf. Now you could also put raisins in this, but I'm not going to, and that's because I'm doing it as an experiment for a specific thing. And it's quite simple, but it's quite long-winded. So the ingredients that I have for the bread rather than for the filling are 500 grams of strong white bread flour, 160 millilitres of milk, which I'm going to bring scald and let cool down to 48 Celsius, which is 120 Fahrenheit. I have one large egg, which would be extra large in the USA, 50 grams of softened butter, 7 grams of active dried yeast, a quarter of a teaspoon of salt, and 50 grams of castor sugar. I also have 100 millilitres of water, which I have hopefully at about 43 Celsius, which is 110 Fahrenheit. So with the water at that temperature, I'm going to put the yeast into that, and I'm going to add in a little bit of the sugar, just a little bit. And then I'm going to give that a quick stir around and leave that for 10 minutes so that the yeast will start to activate and go frothy. And while that's happening, my milk will cool to the 48 Celsius that I need it to. So I'll be back with you once the yeast is activated and we'll go on to make the bread. Okay, so our yeast is nice and frothy now, and I'm going to put that into a bowl. It's going to go into my stand mixer in a minute, but for the purposes of getting things started, I'm going to do it in this little bowl. And then into that I'm going to put the egg, which I've beaten a little bit, the sugar and the butter, and I'm going to mix those together and start to break that butter down because it's quite soft. And with my milk at 48 Celsius, I'm going to mix that in as well. And then that's ready to go into my stand mixer. So I'll pour that in. And into that I'm going to add the flour. I'll add it in stages and set the mixer on a low speed. And I want to mix this until the dough has started to pull away from the sides quite nicely. And it will take a few minutes. This is quite a sticky dough, so it may not come away completely. So I've got the mixer on a low speed to start with, and then I'm going to put it up maybe to number 4. So that's actually been kneading for just a couple of minutes, maybe 3 minutes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that out and form it into a ball and put it into a bowl which I have greased with butter. And I'm going to let that prove for 1.5 hours, or as long as it takes to double in size. As you can see, it's still quite sticky. I'm just going to form that into a ball by turning it under on itself, like that. And then I'll put it top side down and just run that round a little bit to get some of the grease on the top. And I'll cover that and leave it until it's doubled in size, and then I'll be back with you and we'll go on to the next stage. Right, well, I've let our dough rise for 1.5 hours, and it should have doubled in size. We'll take a look at that in a minute, but the first thing I'm going to do is to tell you about the filling. So what I have here is 90 grams of castor sugar, granulated sugar would be fine, and I have 15 grams of ground cinnamon, and I'm going to put the ground cinnamon in with the castor sugar, and I'm just going to stir that around to get it combined. Then I'm going to set that aside. I also have 1 egg, which I'm going to use for brushing onto the dough when I've rolled the dough out. This will help the sugar and the cinnamon stick to the dough, and then as I roll it up. So then we'll go on to the dough, and here it is. As you can see, it's doubled in size, so I'm going to knock that back like that, and then I'm going to tip that out onto the work surface. But first of all, I'm going to just put some flour on there. We'll pull our dough out. Now what I want to do with this dough, I'm just going to fold it up like that. I want to roll that out to a width of slightly less than my loaf pan, and I have here a 2-pound loaf tin which I have buttered, and that's going to hold the bread. So I'll just give this a roll, try to keep it narrow so that it will fit into the tin easily enough. We can squash it up later, it doesn't matter particularly. And with that done, I'm simply going to take my egg And I'm going to brush some of that all over. Now you could use milk for this, but I'm using an egg to try to make the various rolls, turns of the dough stick to each other, because with the filling being dry they do tend to separate, and you can't really avoid that, but this may help it a little bit. So with that, I'm simply going to sprinkle my cinnamon mixture onto the dough quite liberally. And the next thing we're going to do is to roll that up as tightly as we can. And what I'm actually going to do is, as I roll it, I'm just going to brush with more egg. And using this silicone mat is not a bad idea because it helps you to roll. And then I'm going to pinch the dough together like that. And I'm going to turn the ends in on themselves like that. And I'm going to pick that up and put it into my loaf tin. Now that's not necessarily going to be particularly easy, and I'm going to put it seam side down in the tin. Like that. I'm just going to push that and flatten it down. And then the next thing to do is to cover that with a damp towel or some loose plastic wrap and allow it to rise for another hour. And then as it's coming to the end of that hour, preheat the oven to 180 Celsius, 160 Celsius with a fan, 350 Fahrenheit, and then this will be ready to go into the oven. So I'll come back and show you how it's risen and then put it in the oven in an hour's time. Right, so I'm back with you, and I've let the dough prove once again in the loaf tin for an hour, and this is what it looks like basically. And so now I'm going to just put that into the oven, and I'm going to bake it for 45 minutes, and then it will be ready. Now if you want to test the temperature with a thermometer, you can do that. The temperature should reach 88 degrees Celsius or 190 degrees Fahrenheit. But if you turn the loaf out and tap the bottom, it should sound hollow inside. Put it on a wire rack and let it cool down. I'll do that, and then I'll be back with you to show you the results. Right, well, our loaf baked for exactly 45 minutes. I did cover the top in the last 10 minutes with some silver foil to stop it from browning too much. And this is what it looks like. I've sliced it, and it swirled quite nicely. It has a very nice crumb to it. So I'll put some butter on a slice and I'll just have a little taste. It is a very nice soft bread, and that lovely cinnamon flavour really comes through. I mean, I usually toast mine if I have cinnamon bread, but it tastes very good just like that. So that's going to be it for this recipe. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, please give me the thumbs up below the video, and click to subscribe to my YouTube channel. In the top right hand corner of the screen, as ever, there will be an eye that you can click on, which will take you to the recipe on my blog, and I will also put a link to that below the video, and I'll be back with you in the near future with another video. So until then, happy baking.